Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. Today we have Mabela Refi with us. She is a Reiki practitioner and a distant healer. And also, last session, she explained about tarot. So, today we have a very important and a very intriguing subject matter. So, which is healing.
Mhm.
So, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi. Yes, thank you, Tanvir. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. So, yes, my name's Emma, as Tanvir has said, and I'm a Reiki master teacher and practitioner for humans and animals. And I kind of started my professional practice it was January 2020. So, from myself having a few qualms about distance healing to begin with, because it just the logic part of the brain can't figure out how it works. I decided that I was going to have to just trust and give it a go. And that's what I did. And it was mind-blowingly powerful. And it was actually distant shiatsu really that got me onto that from my shiatsu studies, because I heard from some of the teachers at the college on our online sessions that they were using distance healing for shiatsu, and they explained how they were going about it. So I started to try that myself, and I got some evidence from people who had never had shiatsu or distance shiatsu before, and also with Reiki as well. So it just really it was, in a way, it was like a gift for me to be forced out of my comfort zone and to have to be open-minded and just say, sod it, let's just give it a go and see what happens. So yeah, that's kind of, and I use distance healing a lot these days as well. I use it in my own practice, but also in for some of my clients, they live quite a way away from me. So distance Reiki for humans and animals as well. So yeah.
Right. Thank you, Emma, for explaining that. So today, my first question is, what is distant healing?
Yeah. So distance healing, in a nutshell, it's kind of difficult to put your finger on, but it's when the practitioner and the person receiving the healing are in different locations. And the healer will use their intention. They will use connection to energy, to the energy of the person, and they will send healing. It can be thought about in all kinds of different ways. There are some people who think about it in terms of kind of deep meditation and leaving the body to go to the person. There are some people who visualize it in terms of connecting via the Reiki distance symbol, the connection symbol. And there are some people who use different ways. It's basically when the healer and the person receiving the healing are not physically in the same location.
Yes, thanks. So both of us knows about the how remote healing works, but the main question here, who are not familiar with remote healing, they will ask first. So, what is the difference between in-person healing and the remote healing? So, how they will distinguish both things?
Yeah. Now, this is an interesting one because remote healing requires the person receiving the healing to be open-minded so that they're not kind of blocking the session. So they just have to be willing to to accept the fact that it might work, and they're just going to see how it works. There'll usually be a conversation to begin with, whether that's via text, whether that's via phone, or whether that's via video call. And the healer and the person receiving the healing will just check in with each other, see how everything's going, set some intentions for the session, just as they would with a face-to-face session, really. Then some people who give distance healing sessions will leave the video on. They'll leave the channel open there, I don't tend to do that. I will ask the person to, well, we'll close the call, however it's taking place. I will advise them to go and lie down somewhere quiet, somewhere comfortable where they won't be disturbed, make themselves as comfortable as possible, and just relax and set their intention to receive the treatment, however that feels or is for them. And I'll let them know that I'm going to text them when it's finished. They can either respond and say, let's have a feedback session straight away. That does happen sometimes, but quite often they'll want to just stay there in the energy afterwards, because people usually feel when a session has finished, when the energy stops, but they're still kind of there in the energy of healing and very, very relaxed. So it's good if they can stay there and just bask in that for a little while and just take advantage of that. I always advise that they have a drink of water nearby so that they can ground themselves after treatment. And I also advise that they have something to write with and a piece of paper so that they can take notes and just do a bit of journaling afterwards as to what the experience was like. And then we have a feedback session after, when it's the right time for them. So they know when it's going to start. They know I'll tell them when it's finished. So all they have to do is lie back and follow their intuition and just notice what happens and just let it flow.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. I just want to let our audience know that there will be a practical session in our second series. So stay tuned with us.
Yes.
There is a interlinked question. So I usually do Reiki as distant healing. So is there any other modality for distant healing?
Any modality can be done via distance healing. Seriously. Yeah, distance healing has been used for centuries, if not millennia. You would have people who were wise people who would live in the mountains, who would be Buddhists or Taoists, and they would connect with people via the field, the energy field, through meditation, and send metta, send love and healing, and help people. And I've read accounts of people who've been in dire need and they felt the presence of somebody and they've seen a face in their mind, and it's only years later that they've seen a photograph of the same person who came to help them. So distance healing is something that has existed, I think, probably for as long as humans have existed, because we are all also energy. And whilst we have this very engaging physical world, we do also exist in different ways, on different levels of existence. And distance healing makes use of tapping into those other states of being and those other kind of energetic senses, almost altered states of consciousness, really, to allow us to connect with somebody or a place or whatever, to connect energetically on that plane and to interact and to help and to send energy and to interact, I guess, is probably one of the best ways of putting it, with whoever or whatever is present there. So physically we might be in different places, but energetically, distance and even time are not things that have to get in our way. So yeah, I've used shiatsu. That was the second modality I used distance healing with, and it was incredibly powerful. I just give the treatment as though the person is there on the mat in front of me, and from conversations afterwards, I was just blown away by how vividly people felt it in their bodies and their energy as well. It was very different from distance Reiki. So it's not even as though the modality is a tool that we kind of use and we connect and it's all the same, because it's not. Different modalities will feel different whether they're face-to-face or whether they're in distance treatments.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. So as you were saying about the connection, So may I ask that how a practitioner connect with the clients
Yeah.
when
So
they're in a remote place?
yeah, that will depend. That's kind of a practice, and there are various tools that we can make use of to get used to connecting to the energy field. One of them is it's one that we use in Reiki, and that is the distance symbol and the distance symbol mantra. Um, and you do have to be attuned to Reiki to make use of that, and to be attuned to Reiki at the second degree to be able to make use of that really, properly. And what that does is it gets us used to being in that state so we can recognize when it happens, and we can the more we use it, the more adept we become at using it, the more we can just slip into it when we want to. But so there can come a stage where you don't have to make use of that symbol to jump into the quantum kind of vibrational level of Reiki, that connecting level, the quantum field. In shiatsu, for example, we connect via our alignment, so our physical posture between heaven and earth, and we make that connection. We align ourselves, and it's to do with the kind of the spine and connecting from above and below. And then we send our awareness into the field around us. So we it's using the body and the mind at the same time. And there are different techniques that you can use to do this. But that's one that takes more practice, or some people might be kind of naturally gifted at that, and they might find it quite easy to slip into that state. But it's finding a practice that helps you that enables you to get used to going into that state where you can connect energetically. So there's no one way of doing it. There's no one right way of doing it. So it's a case of Reiki is one of the simplest, but getting to level 2 and to really engage with that in a deep way, an experiential way that's not just faith, that does take time and practice. But once you do get there, it's very, very vivid and very much probably, I don't know, it's kind of more of a guided pathway to get to using distance healing. Whereas with other modalities, there is more of a, or at least in my experience, there has been more of a drawing on your own will and deciding you're going to do it and saying, right, let's just do this, and using your focus and your will and your concentration and your kind of empathetic connection to the person when you're talking to them beforehand. That's when I would connect with a person for a shiatsu, for example, because I don't use the distance symbol when I'm doing a distance shiatsu healing. I use that conversation to connect with the person's energy there and then and make that connection then. And it's really hard to put into words. So yeah, I hope that helps. It's trying it, experimenting, being open-minded, and also saying to yourself, this is possible. I'm going to suspend disbelief and I'm going to go with this and see what happens.
Right, thanks. So, Imam, few session back, you have given an example about your teacher who healed the water from a very further distance. Can you please give that example for our audience today?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have evidence that distance Reiki works, scientifically proven evidence. So my Reiki master is Torsten Lang, who, going back to about 2018 or 2019, I think, carried out a series of experiments. He was giving Reiki to bottles of tap water, and this there's one lab, certainly in Europe, possibly in the world, in Switzerland, this lab is, and they measure the quality of water, different types of water, by evaporating the water and looking at the crystalline molecular structure of the substances that are left. And so they can tell how good the water is, basically. And so Torsten Lang got these bottles of tap water and did this testing. So he gave Reiki to the bottles of water, first of all, just using Reiki without any symbols. And then he used Reiki with all three level 2 symbols and also with the master symbol, I believe. And in each case, the quality of the water changed and improved. And the crystalline structure showed different characteristics and different types of shape and qualities depending on the symbol that he used, so the different frequency of Reiki. And then he went over to London and he had them put these bottles of tap water onto the table in that place in a lab in Switzerland. And he sent distance Reiki from London. And ta-da! The water changed quality and it reflected the fact that he had been sending it Reiki. So there is, if you check it out on his website, it's Reiki Science is what Torsten Lang kind of does this sort of work using that term. So search Reiki Science and search Torsten Lang and you will find diagrams, you will find information, you will find his kind of account of what happened and how it happened and all the facts and figures. So yes, it's all there. And how amazing is that? Actual scientific proof that the different symbol works and distance healing works.
Right. Thanks, Ima. So generally, when people comes to energy healing, they have a confusion that is that energy healing works or not. So that's a very good example. And I would like to search, I would like to suggest our audience to look for Masaru Emoto's water healing process. So he figured out that when you talk with water, and sometimes if you asking bad things to particular water and something good with saying good things to another specimens of water, and when you test, and their crystal formation is totally different.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So
that's amazing. I've heard about that myself. It sounds really interesting. I think that kind of goes less towards healing and more towards
vibration.
The vibration, yeah, and the fact that water manifests chi, doesn't it? Water is the element that kind of gives form to the formless. So it's a really good medium for chi, for energy. So yeah.
Right. So back to our topics. So is there any kind of belief we need to have for adapting distance healing? Like
No.
if I don't believe about distant healing or healing itself, so will it affect anyways?
You don't need to believe, but you need to make sure you're not blocking, basically. So as with Reiki, you don't have to believe in order for it to work. But sometimes people can subconsciously put up blockers because it's like, how does this work? I can't explain it. I've got no story to tell that fits with science, that fits with my worldview. So of course it can't work, and the ego gets in the way, and the logic brain gets in the way. And really, the best thing to do, if you find that happening, is just take a deep breath and say, do you know what? This is a big, wide world. And just for a moment, it may not work, but I'm going to open to the fact it might. And let's do a scientific experiment and prove whether or not it does work. So in order for it to be a scientific experiment, you've got to be as neutral as possible. Just relax and give it a chance. If that's what you need to do to set your mind to yeah, I'm going to prove it doesn't work, but I'm going to make sure it's scientifically robust. That's maybe one way to approach it if you're having trouble with the logic brain.
Right. So, yeah, the thing is, we have a self-protective mechanism. So if we somehow blocked ourselves to receiving any kind of energies, then definitely it will not help if some people are sending good things or good vibes towards us. So it is very much necessary to open ourselves and just to give it a try with an open belief, and then
Absolutely.
it will affect positively, or else
Yes.
it will not be as much helpful as we are expecting.
No, it can be. So I've had one instance where somebody um, said that they were open to receiving Reiki as a sort of a mini session, but it turned out that they really weren't, and they were very they didn't want it, but they were going along with what their partner wanted them to do. And I knew that there was the energy flowing. I could feel it quite strongly, and I did have to go. They wouldn't receive it from most of their body, but there was one, like a hand or something like that, that was open. There was a bit of a gap, and it was flowing quite strongly. But afterwards, they were like, no, 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 no. Didn't feel anything. Didn't feel anything. I knew it had worked. Their subconscious probably knew it had worked, but they really weren't in the right place for that. And so it's, yeah, if somebody comes to me and kind of says that they want Reiki, then I will try to give them, well, I won't try to, I will offer them Reiki. They can block it if they choose to, but really what benefit does that do them or me? It's a waste of both of our time, really. So it's good if you can be honest with yourself. But that if you don't believe in it and you think it probably isn't true, but you are open-minded, and I have had plenty of people who fit into that category, then just go along and see what happens. Be open to the fact that just lying down and having a nice relax is probably going to do you some good, and then you're more likely to actually experience and interact with the Reiki as well. And as I say, I've had that happen quite a lot. I've been privileged and blessed to be able to give a lot of people who were very, very dubious about Reiki, their first Reiki experience. And in, as I say, all cases except for that one person, they have been really pleasantly surprised, and they've had a positive experience.
Right. Thanks, Emma. So today's last questions for this session is, for what kind of issues we can use distant healing?
Well, I would say for all kinds of issues, really. For any kind of issue that you would use face-to-face healing, as well as if somebody has trauma or psychological issues which prevent them from leaving their home, like agoraphobia. If people don't like to be touched or hyperreactive to people they don't know, then distance healing can be a really, really good way to go. For people who have mobility problems, distance healing can be really helpful there. For people who get easily overwhelmed or anxious, distance healing is also helpful because you're in a setting that you're controlling. There's no physical person there with you, and the healer should make it clear that you'll only receive as much as you want to. Because with distance healing, as with face-to-face healing, you can decide to stop the treatment at any point. The person receiving is in the driving seat, and distance healer should be very in tune with what's happening with that person, with their energy, and if they want it to stop, the healer should pick up on that and should stop the treatment at that point. So yeah, I would say anything that you would use a face-to-face treatment for, with the added aspects of limitations to receiving face-to-face treatments aren't an issue anymore. Also, if people are obviously a long, long way away in a different country, then distance healing can be a way for them to receive a treatment from somebody who works far away from them. If somebody is traveling a lot for work or works funny hours, then a distance treatment can also be a good way to still be able to receive a healing treatment. That these considerations also exist for animals as well, because there are some animals that really are hyperreactive with new humans, and distance treatments can help to limit the overstimulation and the distraction and the upset that being in the presence of a healer might have, just on the kind of physical level. So yeah, it's a really, really useful way to work, I find.
Right. Thank you, Ima. And thanks to our audience as well for listening to this vibrant question answer session. Due to the time limitation, we need to make another episode. We have many more questions regarding the distant healing. So it is quite interesting, as well as not that much popular in our audience community, that how that things actually work. So
Yeah.
in our next session, we will carry on with more questions.
Yeah.
So till then, stay tuned with us. Do you want to say any closing statement, Ima?
Yes, stay curious, stay open-minded. And if you've never tried distance healing, give it a go. What have you got to lose?
Right. If you have any question, please drop your question in the comment section. We will try to get back to that question as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Till then, stay tuned. Bye.
Yes.